Welcome to the Mind Muscle Radio podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about my favorite subject, me. Okay, this is going to be a get to know me, a history of, who I am and why I do what I do. So we are going to flash back all the way to the very beginning, to the best year there ever was, 1984, when I popped out of my mum so fast the midwife hadn't even got there before I arrived. And that's going to kind of set up my sort of philosophy on life. It's like, always in a bit of a rush, always in a bit of a hurry, doesn't always pay off for me. I was born in England, in the sleepy town of Camberley in Surrey. Lived down there till I was about 4. Honestly, don't really remember it. That was 1984 to 1989. Then we moved up to Scotland, and that's where I grew up. So that is why I consider myself to be Scottish, not English, because I don't know about growing up in England. I don't remember it, really. So it has no real effect on me. All my life, I grew up, went to school, did everything, went to uni, fell in love, all in Scotland. So I do consider myself Scottish, but also partly Italian, because we are an Italian family, Schiavone being the anglicized version of Schiavone, the proper Italian name on my dad's side. So proudly, partly Italian. It's definitely where I get my my stubbornness and my fire from. It's definitely from the Italian side. And probably get my quite chilled, laid back vibe from the Scottish side, because, generally we're passionate, but also pretty chill, easygoing people. So anyway, grew up in Scotland, and I was always the sporty kid. I know lots of personal trainers and people always have this story about how they were fat, or they were super unfit, or something happened to them. But sorry to disappoint, I've always been fit and healthy. I was a sporty kid. I've got sporty parents. My dad was a championship squash player and badminton player and runner, and mum was always going to do classic 90s step aerobics classes and all this sort of stuff, right? I always grew up around health and fitness. I was always playing outside, always riding my bike. So that kind of just led me into things as a kid. So as a youngin, I was big into martial arts. I did the Korean martial art Tang Soo Do, and I was very good at it. I was one belt short of black belt when I stopped. I was British champion a couple of times for like sparring and forums, for my age group. So, I did well, man. I enjoyed it. Kept me healthy. I loved kind of kicking ass and, fighting people and doing stuff like that. It's a good way to let out some of that, young boy angst. I only had to give that up later on when I changed schools, which we'll kind of touch on as we go. But my main thing is I was a sprinter. I was a runner, not a distance runner. Ooh, I was never very good at distance, but sprinting was my thing. I was fast in a straight line over a short distance, like a dwarf, right? Like they say in Lord of the Rings, dwarfs, very dangerous over short distances. So I was a good sprinter. I was undefeated until I was about 16 years old, when I lost for the first time ever. I lost a 100-meter race, and my life kind of changed from that direction, quite honestly. So being healthy through school, fairly uneventful, just typical small town Scottish stuff. Can't really go on about it too much. When we moved up into high school is where, I kind of excelled more through the sports and tried different things. Whenever it came to stuff like sports day and stuff, whether you liked me or you hated me, you always wanted me on your team because you knew I was going to win. So it would always be funny when you'd have the people who didn't like you or bullied you in school, but as soon as it came to school sports day, they'd be screaming your name because you were on their team or their house and they knew you were going to win. It's amazing how sport brings people together, even when they hate you. So, for me, school, high school especially, bullying was a big particular issue for me. You're the weird kid in school because you've got the foreign name. Up in the north of Scotland, in the 90s, it was very monocultural. So there were no people of color in my town. It was all white people. So for me to have like the Italian surname was about as weird and unusual as it got. So that was always a source of bullying for me. The fact that, again, like I mentioned earlier, I'd been born in England, but raised in Scotland. Everyone up there considered me to be English, not Scottish, despite how I felt about it. So, got a lot of grief for all that kind of stuff, which eventually then led me to going to boarding school for a couple of years. Now that sounds like, ooh, la-di-da, posh boarding school. It wasn't. Dad was in the Air Force, and there's a school in Scotland that is specifically for children of people who are in the armed forces, so Navy, Army, Air Force. So it was cheap, because the Ministry of Defense paid for it. So I went there for a couple of years, and that's where I kind of like fell in love really with like the gym and training more, because that was where I lost my first ever 100-meter race. And I was just like, oh, well, guess I need to do something else with my life because I clearly suck at this and can't go any further. I'd given up rugby because by that point, all the boys my age had like beards and were like 6 foot tall. I'm 41 now and I still can't grow a decent beard, and I'm 5'10", 5'11", maybe. So I'd kind of been taken out of like rugby because I just couldn't keep up with the size of the lads doing it. I'd kind of given up on running because I was realizing like, okay, people who are actually good at it now, like really good at it, are just smoking me and I can't keep up. I was never any good at long distance running. Still am not good at long distance running. So the school had a gym, and I just started sort of like just training and messing around with the weights in the gym. And I was like, this is quite fun. Quite enjoy this. There's no competitive element to it other than myself. But I still remember the moment I got hooked on like the gym and building muscle, right? It was quite an innocent, casual thing. I was in my room in the dorm. We just had like, these little mirrors on the wall. And I just remember like, looking in the mirror one day, just raising up my arms, just like stretching, just like, a classic overhead, arms behind the head stretch. And I saw this bicep pop. And I was like, hello, what the fuck is that? Like, I have a muscle there. I have a bicep. And I saw it and I loved it. And I've never looked back. And I would have been, like 16... But yeah, probably about 16 at the time. And that just started it. I kind of just abandoned any other kind of like sport or sporting activity and really just began to like focus in on the gym. The only other thing I did outside of that was snowboarding. And of course, that's very much weather and location dependent and not something I can be doing every single day. So that's kind of how I discovered like, my love for the gym. It was just that one moment in the mirror where I saw something I liked. And I was like, yes, I see the appeal of this. And so here we are now. So we finished school and went off to university. Now, I'm a nerd. I've always been a nerd. I've always been studious and done well in school and exams and things. And always had like a love of science and science fiction and things. So I decided that I wanted to do geology at school. Now, back then, I was still naive enough that I was like, I'm going to do geology because then I'm going to get a job to work for NASA. And then I'm going to go to Mars and be a geologist on Mars, genuinely. It's just like, that's a possibility if I do this. But also, being where I lived, the oil industry is a much more common and prevalent thing up in that part of Scotland. So being a geologist is actually a very good career, a very well-paying career. So I went off to uni and I did geology. I did 4 years at uni, undergraduate, and that's where I met my lovely wife, Tina, so we've been together since we were 19 years old. And, we're now, 41. So we have been together forever. I don't remember life before Tina, really. Not really. Honestly, like, I don't even remember like the last name of the girlfriend I had before Tina. I know her name was Amanda, but I couldn't tell you even what her last name is. So it's been that long. So me and Tina have been together forever. We met doing geology. We were in the same class and we just kind of like hit it off one day. And I spent 9 hours just talking in a lab, getting to know each other. And then that was it. Game over. Like I said, we've been together now, 22 years. We've been married now for, 13 years, I think. So yeah, that's great. Still going strong, still happy. But yeah, so we went through that. We did the geology degree, and I kept just like getting into the gym more and more because it was good weights and good equipment at the gym. And still back then, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Before in those early days, like in my last year of school, you're trying to kind of get that body, trying to do the things. I remember my dad had one of those like electronic ab belt things that you strap to your stomach and it makes your abs contract. I remember strapping that on and lying down on my sofa bed in my bedroom, having that thing, making my abs twitch. And I was like, this will give me a six pack. Of course, shock horror, it does not give you a six pack. That, and like they had this other thing called like a health rider, which is one of those like infomercial type purchases that my dad kind of like impulsively bought once. He used to buy a lot of this crap from America when they went on like detachment to the States. He had all these just like weird and wonderful like late night infomercial gym equipment, bless him. And I'd be riding this health rider thing and strapping the ab belt on because I wanted to be leaner and look good for like summer and the last summer of high school to try to impress the girl I liked at the time. And it didn't really have much of an effect. And this is going to be like a running theme throughout this. I have tried a lot of dumb stuff, right? This is one of the reasons I'm a PT and I try to educate you guys, is because if there's something stupid, I have probably done it believing it's going to work as well, right? It's not just you. Typically happens to all of us. I have done it. So, went through uni, really started to get more into the weights. The body started to change in shape. I started to learn about the importance of protein because I didn't know that protein was a thing that I had to be taking as well as just lifting weights. I thought I just had to lift weights. I still went through lots of stupid six-pack workout things that I got from like Men's Health magazine. I'd do the whole thing and go, I still don't have a six-pack because, again, I didn't know about diet. I didn't know I had to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight, to have abs. And this, again, continued for years of making these like same old mistakes. But the body was changing and growing and I was looking better and I was like getting super happy with that. I didn't have to impress the girls because I already had mine, but I could just kind of really do it and focus on doing it myself. So after uni, I stayed at uni and I went and did my master's degree, but I moved to London, went to the University of Royal Holloway, and did my master's degree in petroleum geology to, again, make sure I could get a job with an oil company. Down there, just a super hardcore year of work, but amazing gyms and stuff, and I kind of just started to get into it more, pushing it more, building more, growing more. That's when people would start to kind of comment, be like, oh, Aaron's got quite a good body, he's quite muscular, he's in good shape, and you're really starting to see it. I still look back on things of me then, I think I look like a skinny bitch, but things are changing. I was growing. And then after that, I moved to Italy. So I got my first job with the Italian oil company, ENI, and me and Tina moved to Milan. And we spent 2 years living there, and it was a mixed bag. I think that's where I really began to realize that I'd spent all these years doing trying to get this job, this career in oil and gas, and then realizing I don't like it. If this is kind of what the job is, it is really fucking dull and I don't enjoy it. Now, I got some fun opportunities. I did some traveling. I spent some time in Nigeria and things, which was interesting. And, I met some cool people and I got to live in a foreign country and experience the culture. But I kind of regret that I was not mature enough or wise enough to really have made the most of that opportunity, to really embrace the culture, embrace the language. I kind of hid from it a bit. Ultimately, after a year, Tina was so fed up because she wasn't working or doing anything that she just left and moved back home. So I was on my own for like the second year, which was just really depressing, quite frankly. I just, went to work, didn't leave the house, didn't really put much effort in at work or anything, and just kind of felt really lost. All I kind of had was the gym to kind of keep me going. But again, you're going off to a gym where, you struggle with the language. You're just kind of trying to do your best. And that was actually the first part of my life where I started to kind of fall out of it where I could go 4, 5, 6 months without going to a gym. I'd go away on holiday, come back, I'd be out of the flow, and I just wouldn't do it because I'd just be so depressed that I couldn't even bring myself to get back into the gym. But eventually, small mercies, the global economic crisis of 2008, 2009 hit, and I lost my job. Moved back to the UK, moved back in with Tina, but this time I was living back in Aberdeen in Scotland, which is where I'd remained for like a good few years. I had to kind of rebuild my career. This is at a point where I was too qualified to get a crappy job working in like a shop. They wouldn't even hire me in places like Hollister and stuff like that because they're like, you're too qualified. I'm like, I know, but I need a job. And currently the oil industry is dead. So it took me like a good long time to get back into just a crappy data management job. And then I worked my way back up into like some geology roles through some subsequent oil companies. And the thing I always said to myself was like, right, the next job will be better. I'll get more money. I'll get more responsibility. This is what I want. And I kept moving up. Next job, next company, bit more money, bit more responsibility, slightly better job title. But all the while I was like, something's missing. I'm like, I've just got to move to the next job, right? That's what will make me happy and like give me what I want. Ultimately though, it didn't. I made more money, more responsibility, better everything. By the end of it, I was 27 years old, making 75K a year and miserable. I was so depressed in my last couple of jobs and hated it so much, just the daily work, that I would go and just like take naps in my car. I'd schedule in a meeting and then I'd go for like a 30, 45-minute nap in the car. Or I had a place down the very bottom of a stairwell where there was only a fire escape, and I would go down there with my iPad and watch something on my iPad or play a game. I was just finding any excuse just to do something to pass the days. I was like, this cannot be my life. This cannot be my life. It was miserable. Hated it. And then, luckily again, the industry took a bit of a downturn and they were going to make redundancies. So I was like, all right, now's the time. So I purposely made myself as useless as possible, as disposable as possible. Put in zero effort to charm anyone to try and keep my job because I wanted to be made redundant. Because I decided at that point, I'm going to become a PT. Because the one thing I always did when I was bored at work, when I couldn't focus or didn't want to focus or was distracted or just needed something to make my life feel even remotely interesting, is I would look at fitness content. I would think about the gym. I would plan my workouts. I would plan my meals. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And so I did. Got made redundant. Within a week of being made redundant, I was on my personal training course. And here we are, 10 years later, still doing it, right? Never looked back. Now, has it been an easy ride this last 10 years? Absolutely not. Jesus. Being self-employed is a roller coaster. It is tough. Anybody who thinks they can get into a personal training career because they think it's going to be easy because, you work for yourself and you make your own money and you work your own hours. Ha! Oh, fuck me, are you in for a shock? It is hard. Everything comes down to you. When I first started, I mean, you believe it or not, I'm quite an introvert person. I don't like attention. I don't really like putting myself out there. I am not the life of the party. I am the hide at the back in the corner with a drink in my hand, not looking and talking to anyone kind of guy at a party. Okay. But I had to go from being very uncomfortably introvert to suddenly being thrust into a gym floor environment where I have to walk up to strangers and make conversation and try to help people and to be approachable. That was hard for me. That was really hard for me. So I started my first PT job at the now defunct DW in Aberdeen. And I was lucky enough to come into an environment where there were some just really good PTs and just really nice, friendly people, which made the job a lot easier. Because I was like, this is great. The people here are nice. The PTs are lovely. We had a good little group while I was there. And I just started to build up the business and get experience. And yeah, I mean, I look back on some of it now and go, how I used to train people, I wouldn't do it now the way I used to. Not in a million years, but I got people result, right? And I was just constantly learning and developing kind of like how to do it. So I had my first year there, which was really successful. You literally went from, earning nothing to earning a pretty good paycheck by the end of my first year. But at that point, my wife, Tina, she had been doing a PhD, but she'd finished her PhD and then had moved into a new career. She works as a patent attorney. So intellectual property, patenting, inventions and stuff. She currently works for Dyson. So she works on all of like Dyson's super secret stuff and things. So she loves it, but she'd got into that as a career. I was now out of oil and gas. And we were just thinking, we don't have to live in Aberdeen anymore, because Aberdeen is a grey, depressing, boring shithole of a city. If you're from Aberdeen and you like it, I apologize. I hate it. I hate going back there. I still have family there who live there, so I still have to kind of go back and visit. And I'm like, oh, dear God. Kind of wait for the day that I never have to come back here. But it was our chance to leave. So wife started getting interviews for jobs. She got her very first interview. She got offered the job on the day in a town called Cheltenham down here in England. And she's like, cool, I got a job. We're moving to Cheltenham. I'm like, fantastic. Where is that? I couldn't have told you where Cheltenham was on a map. But a few months later, we were here, settled into like our new life here. But it meant that I had to completely restart my business from scratch again. So, pretty much lost most of my clients, except a few who came online with me, and had to start all over again. And it was a bumpy few years. The first year I picked things up quite quick, but I kind of worked in a business model that I didn't really like. I worked with a business mentor who pushed me to do things that didn't make me feel comfortable. Charging people quite high prices for what was group coaching rather than one-to-one coaching. So I made a lot of money quite quick off a lot of people, but eventually like the cracks started to show and it kind of crumbled. And then I just sort of went back to your more conventional one-to-one training. I bounced between a few gyms, trying to find somewhere I fitted in. Worked in a couple that were very cliquey gyms, where they never really made me feel particularly welcome because I wasn't one of them and someone that they'd known for years. So I did that. And again, did well, got, decent clients, got lots of good results. I was happy enough with what I was doing. That's when I also first started to try and compete in bodybuilding competitions, which I did twice and fucking hated. Because man, bodybuilding prep to get that lean is brutal, and it killed me and ruined me and has still left me with some issues now, 8 years down the line, that kind of bug me, like intestinal health issues and stuff that all came from just like this absolutely just brutal prep process and like the year before. So generally wouldn't recommend competing to anyone but the most strong-willed of people. But I did that a couple of times thinking it would help grow the business and improve my profile on my social media. It didn't. It mostly just ruined the business and ruined me. So, part of me is kind of glad I did it, to have at least been through that experience. But generally, I wouldn't recommend bodybuilding to anyone, certainly not to just like normal, everyday people. So yeah, that was when I first decided, right, I'm a little bit fed up with PTing in the gym. I'm going to go online now. And I did purely online coaching for about a year, I think between 2017 to 2018. And I failed miserably. I think I was averaging maybe about 10 clients a month. Lucky if I was making £800 or £900 a month. So that was a real struggle year. And it was at the end of that I kind of started a fun little second career where I became a film and TV extra. Now that was good crack. And that actually saved my ass during COVID too. So yeah, I kind of started just working as a film and TV extra and worked on all sorts of projects, from Downton Abbey to Jurassic Park and Star Wars and like His Dark Materials and a whole bunch of other like small TV shows and some movies and things. And the Batman with Robert Pattinson, and all sorts of stuff. And I had a great time, man. It's just so amazing to like learn what it's really like to work behind the scenes in movies and TV, because I've always had a love for movies and TV, and to have been in like my favorite franchise of all time, Star Wars. You can't see around the room, but there's Star Wars stuff everywhere. To have been in Star Wars is incredible. The fact that you can see me if you pause it right at the right second, in 1 second of Andor on Disney Plus, you can see me. And I met some amazing people. I made some great friends, especially working on a show called Brave New World that I did like months on. I met like some amazing people. And that, I gave me something, man, because working alone at home just broke me. I was just alone at home all day. The wife's a bit of a workaholic, so she was never here. We didn't have Sky yet. So yeah, I was kind of a bit lonely and depressed. So that kind of like really saved me and helped me like meet new people and do new things. Then, I decided, right, I'm actually going to go back into PTing in the gym again. The online isn't working. So right as I decided to get back into the gym and I started working at a local gym here in Cheltenham, COVID happened. Fuck. A kick in the dick again. I had, kind of given up on my online business and was like, I'm just going to build a PT business in the gym again. And I was in it for about 3 months before COVID started. And then the gyms closed down and everyone had to move online. And I was like, I don't have much of an online. So COVID was a pretty brutal struggle from a financial point of view and trying to build a business again. That was a hard couple of years to kind of get through that. But the extra work, the TV work, saved my ass, because I could still do that. And I probably did more extra work during COVID than I had at any other point, because they were still, making it. It was considered an important job. I was an essential worker because I worked in film and TV. And I made a bank doing that. Some projects you're making 250, 300 quid a day, which was, pretty easy money for just, messing around in the background of a TV show. Or in my case, on some of them, doing a simulated orgy with 70 other people. But that's a conversation for a different day. That was a cracking day of work. Anyway, towards the end of COVID, we got pregnant with Sky. And Sky was born not long after the lockdowns ended here in the UK. So that was back in, 2020. How old is she now? Shit. What are we, 2026? 2021. God, was it that long ago? Yeah, 2021. Oh, and then that's when life really changed. During COVID, I made the decision. I was like, right, either this is going to be make or break. I can either be one of these people who's going to sit around during COVID and do nothing, or, and just like complete Netflix, or I'm going to use it to build the business, grow things, come out the other side of it stronger and better. And that's what I did. That's when I created my website, started writing my blog. And that's when everything changed for me. Completely changed. Started a website, started just writing posts on a blog. I was like, why the fuck not? And I would write content about all sorts of things, but I started writing content about glute stuff, glute training, glute shapes, glute genetics, etc. And that stuff, the SEO on Google just picked it up, and it went, and it just exploded. And the website was eventually getting a couple of thousand hits a day. And suddenly traffic was coming in, leads are coming in, new clients are coming in. And that's how I became known as like a glute guy, a glute coach. I am what the internet made me, because that's the content that started doing well. So I just, leaned into it. I never actively chose to be like a glute guy. Like some guys do, but mostly because they're creepy perverts and they just want to look at and think about and touch girls' bums in the gym all day. I got into it because that's what y'all came to me for. That's the content that resonated with people. And I'm like, ooh, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Like, lean into it. If that's what the people want and they're coming to me for, then that's who I'm going to be. So that's how I became, as I used to be known on Instagram, the Booty and Barbells Coach. And I've just leaned into it ever since, because that's still what people know me for, what they come to me for. One of the areas that I get like my best results is obviously like glute training. So eventually I did another good couple of years working on the gym floor, had an amazing group of clients at the gym I worked at. Again, got some incredible results. I learned so much, I grew so much, developed so much, like professionally and personally and physically. And it was one of the smartest and best decisions I ever made, especially because now I had a little baby here. I had to make sure I was providing. I had to make sure I was doing everything I could to make money and make sure the family was secure, because Tina had taken a year off work on like maternity leave, and then after that she decided not to go work and start her own business, which she tried, God bless her, she tried, but after a year she kind of gave up because it was just like so hard, and so like unreliable and unpredictable. So I was very much like, I have to make it work. I have to make it work. I have to get clients. I have to do well. I have to grow the online business. I have to have all this stuff firing on all cylinders. And it was a huge game changer for me, because if I hadn't done that stuff during COVID, I probably would not be where I am now. You wouldn't be watching this. I wouldn't be sitting here with, the clients I've got, the size of the social media I've got, like the sponsorships and things. Like none of that would have happened if I hadn't knuckled down during COVID and put that work in. So it kind of brings us up to like the last few years. Eventually, I kind of got a bit fed up of working in the gym I was in. Began to feel like a prison. The same people, the same faces, the same windowless walls, because there was no natural light. You kind of get fed up with people. And quite frankly, like some of the personal trainers I worked with there are just idiots. I'll say it. They're fucking idiots, and some of the worst personal trainers I've ever had to share a facility with in my life. And that's one of those things that just eats at you over time. So I was like, you know what? I'm ready now. Ready to take it all back online again. And so now I've been doing it purely online for the last couple of years. And, it's been up and down. We've had good months and bad months. We've had good years and bad years. But, it's still doing well enough that we can kind of keep it going. And it's only really been in the last couple of years that, things have really begun to kind of like take off and be like more consistent in terms of, like the social media and stuff. So I know like a lot of people who've come here, I've seen like the videos and things that have brought you in recently. And, you kind of think that maybe things have been like this for a while and, Aaron's super successful, this, that, and everything else. But the truth is, a lot of what you're seeing has literally only happened since Christmas of 2025. Right? It took me 9 years to get from 0 to 6,500 followers on Instagram. And then it's taking me 2 and a bit months to go from 6,000 to almost 30,000. It has been a bit of a wild ride that I was not expecting. So I didn't do anything different. Suddenly Instagram just started liking my content for once and sharing it, and stuff started popping off, and now you're all here. And I'm like, I don't understand it. Mentally, I've kind of not been fully like prepared for it. The good elements of it, the bad elements of it. It has been a wild roller coaster ride. But still, always the main thing I'm here for and I'm doing it for is my family, right? I've got my little daughter who I am trying to give a good life. I'm trying to be a good example. Again, one of the main reasons that I kind of work with women now and over this last few years is because, all the most important people in my life, except my dad, are women, right? It's my mum, my sister, my niece, my wife, my daughter. My dad is really the only guy in my life, bar like, my male friends. So I've always been surrounded by women. I've always been surrounded by strong, very, willful women who've always tried to be fit and healthy, but also women who have struggled with their health in ways. And so I feel like I have a really good understanding of it. I think that as a girl dad as well, knowing what the world is like and how it treats women has really pushed me forward to want to change that. Especially in this world we live in now of, fucking manosphere and all this ridiculous hate and, attitude towards women and stuff. I'm like, I want to rail against that. I want to be a good example of how men and women should be to each other, how they should get along, how we should be encouraging each other, supporting each other, bigging each other up. That's what the whole Strong for a Girl series is really about. It's just, tired of women thinking that they have to be small and quiet and timid and can't be strong and can't lift heavy and bullshit like that. I'm like, no, you can. You can be as strong as men or stronger than men and, all this kind of stuff. And certainly stronger than me. It's not that hard. But it's always been about encouraging women. Because I don't want my, forgive the term I'm about to use, ladies, but I don't want my daughter to grow up to be a little bitch. I don't want her to be walked over by men. I don't want her to be weak and timid and quiet. I don't want her to be subservient. I want her to be loud and out there and be herself and to be strong and powerful physically, mentally, And I kind of feel that in a way to do that is to help shape more women in the world to be like that. So that's why I do what I do. Hopefully that, makes sense. So that's pretty much my story. The skinny dude who discovered the gym, during high school and just kind of got like addicted to it. And, I've been through all the ups and downs, man, all the dumb shit you do. I've done highly restrictive diets where I haven't done it properly, so I didn't know what I'm doing, and basically just like hardly ate any food and got horrendously constipated and headachy and fatigued and ended up quitting and binging and eating lots of food, and you gain all the weight back, or just doing like unhealthy things and having an unhealthy relationship with food. And sometimes when I got too into fitness and I was too strict with my food and too clean, and used to talk about how donuts were the devil's food and I would never eat them, and mock my friends for having a Krispy Kreme, and I didn't drink and didn't do anything. And I look back on that now, I'm like, God damn, that was some dumb shit. Like, life was not fun when you're too into fitness, and you're too clean. And I remember making things like making my own like protein bars and making them with shit like baby food, and because that's what the recipe called for from fucking bodybuilding.com. I'm so glad that's died a death. But there was just all kinds of dumb shit that I read and believed from websites and articles and magazines and stuff that I fell for. So don't feel bad if you have fallen for dumb shit too, because most fitness professionals have. Very few of us have ever been perfect and done everything right in our fitness careers. And even now, I still make mistakes. I still don't know everything. I can't know everything. There's so much, too much to know about all the different nuances of everything to do with fitness and physiology and biomechanics and physics and all sorts of stuff. And it's just like, you can't know it all. All you can ever do is just do your best. All I ever try to do is just do my best for my clients. And, for most of you, it's just boring, basic, simple shit. That's all you need. And, I know it's so easy to get sucked into the sexy, exciting stuff and the shortcuts and stuff. But, most of the time that stuff doesn't work, or it doesn't work long term. Very, very boring stuff works. I know. I really don't know what else to tell you. So that is hopefully not too long a video podcast of me, who I am, why I do what I do. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode.